That mantra was not to be spoken precisely at this time. I'm an old hippie, and this is directed to the new hippies, if any happen to see it. And old hippies have a lot of experiential wisdom, and I'm trying to share mine in these videos. Whether anybody's listening or not, doesn't matter, at least I get it out. So it really started, sorry to talk, man. With the unification of two parts of the movement. There were the camp I was in. We were hippies. We were cultural rebels. We thought we were beatniks, or we emulated beatniks. And that's part of the message. We could never be beatniks because the times had changed. So we became hippies. And you're not hippies because the times have changed. So you're listening to history, and listen up. I'm going to describe my particular experience with demonstrations. And in my case, I attended them in Berkeley and Seattle. Berkeley was the wild one. Oh yeah. At the time, I was seeing a certain Tibetan Lama. I was pretty messed up. I just left a Chinese Zen school and didn't like the results of my efforts at the time. So I was taking the bus from the west to Berkeley, and the bus driver one time said, well, it's fun and games. We can't take you up any further because they're demonstrating on Telegraph. And so left us off on Shattuck. So I went up there and saw several interesting things. One was in a part of a park. It was before the Battle of People's Park. Before that, I saw some rather strong-looking hippie type goading a policeman, and the policeman was having a hassle with him, was going back and forth. It was really interesting. No blows were struck that I saw, but they were really on each other. It was amazing, and they were doing this dance. I think you've been doing dances. Don't shut it down. Okay, not to get off the subject, but I'm high on THC, legal THC, since I'm in Washington State, and I enjoy the things I experience when I'm slightly stoned. And, you know, that was what we brought to the other half of the equation. Snick and all those guys, the hippies, and there weren't hippies yet. We joined the politicos, you know, and hippie attitudes towards politicos are, well, they're doing that. We're doing this. Or are we? Anyway, hippies joined the movement, the political movement. And that happened partly because of the assassination of Kennedy. Kennedy was about to do two things somebody really didn't like: pull out of Vietnam, pull out of Cuba. And as he was considering that, they killed him. So the Vietnam War escalated. And the total bullshit policy towards Cuba continued practically irrevocably for the reason of forces I don't understand, because it's totally impractical, it's counterproductive, and it's against the national interest to have that relationship with Cuba. Okay, I'm getting back in my political mode now. Anyway, I went up the hill and I saw that going on and went up and saw the Lama. And the next time I saw him, I joined because there were ongoing struggles. And wow, the demonstration I was in was when we bombed a hospital in Hanoi. The American government bombed a hospital in Hanoi. And I think this was still the time of Johnson, who did a lot of good on the home front, but it was a total war hawk when it came to Vietnam. And then came Nixon, and he escalated the war into Cambodia and Laos as a secret war. In fact, I had a conversation with a fellow who had previously been a CIA agent in Laos, I think it was. And in fact, he did his job and they put the money in a Swiss bank account. And apparently he was very well paid for what he did. I began to understand a little bit about what the undercurrents were of the whole business. So I went to the demonstration and the atmosphere was strange. It was peaceful down on Shattuck Avenue. And Telegraph and whatever that street, Dwight, I think it is, were just bustling with activity. The cops were all over the place. They were being nonviolent. And the yippies, would do things like knock over garbage cans and express their displeasure. But there were no windows broken, and it had been an ongoing demonstration. I was not there when the city council meeting exploded into the street as they refused to acknowledge the bombing of the hospital and make a stand somehow against it as a city. So that's what caused it. The shops were open. All the supporters of the protests kept their shops open. And I remember being in a particularly dense part of the struggle, and there was a team of cops with a TV camera. You know, in those days, TV cameras were like bulky, right? So if you want to get a shot of something, you really got to be solid. Now we've got lightweight video cameras, and times have changed. Anyway, I went into a shop and bought an orange ice cream cone. So I'm walking around with this orange ice cream cone, and they were sweeping the street. So they were gradually applying pressure for us to move, and we were gradually moving, and I was in the fucking way with my orange ice cream cone. And I finished the ice cream cone, and the dance continued. It was beautiful. It was a very high morale in Berkeley at the time. Um, I finished the ice cream cone and went on with the demonstrating. There was one other scene that I remember that was pretty interesting. At one point, I climbed up on the cyclone fence, and I was hanging on the cyclone fence, right? And under me came a stream of cops, fairly, riot geared, but not like today, not heavily geared, just geared up. So they were streaming out one by one out of this tunnel, which I hadn't even really noticed. I don't know why I was on the cyclone fence. We did crazy things like that. I got busted for things like that every once in a while. Anyway, I was hanging on the cyclone fence, and here was a stream of cops going through. And then they went the other way. And they had a tactic. I don't understand cop tactics, but it was a very polite dance. And then I went up to see the llama. And he laughed and he said, okay, so now you're a revolutionary, huh? And I said, yeah, right now. And I got it at this moment, at this time. But I don't know who or what I might be in the next time. So we have to carry our identities lightly because we don't know really who we're going to be next. And with this COVID-19 business, I was an isolee, now I have a housemate. Everything changed, but that's the tenor of the times. From my personal experience, each day is really surprisingly different, even though I'm isolated or were isolated and don't get out and about very much. What else? Oh yeah, the demonstrations in Seattle. I was still at heart a hippie. I was a cultural transformer. And I wrote poetry. It was mostly based on people like Coleridge and Eliot. I hadn't read much poetry in high school, though I had a very good poetry teacher who understood it. In fact, she quoted a poem that illustrates what poetry does. The old dog barks back without looking up. How frisky he was when he was a pup. And if the pup said it, it would be a different poem. So Seattle, that was later. That was after I had rattled around up and down the coast a couple times, staying with people and working menial jobs. At the time, I was a member of a Marxist party, one which liked to run candidates, but did not do anything illegal. And when demonstrations were staged, it was always a coalition among different groups, some of them pretty radical, though I don't remember much property damage. Anyway, we had a real friction with a faction of the more wild and woolly types that were in the demonstrations. And at one point, they surrounded our van, and I got out of the van through the back and went around to see what was going on. And it was like we weren't really opponents, but we were messing with each other. And they took the gas cap, and I was smoking a cigarette. Yeah. And I got the gas cap back from them and handed it through the open window on the shotgun side. And she said, "Put out that cigarette." And I did. Anyway, that was one incident that happened. That particular demonstration was filled with things that I remember, and many things that I unfortunately do not remember anymore. And we're old hippies, an endangered species. And when we're gone, there won't be anything in the living memory, just documents. And there are way too many documents. Yeah, it's we're using up too much paper too fast, but that's a different issue. I should say I became an ecologist at the time, and it was because of one book, not Silent Spring, though that book moved many. It was called The Web of Life. I don't remember the author. He wrote a second one, Man in the Web of Life. And we're talking in the late 60s this came out in paperback. I've still got copies, I think. That's a different matter. I'm a collector, obviously. And my primary collection is books. Anyway, lost the memory thread. That's yeah, well, I read a lot of books. Oh yeah, another thing that happened in that demonstration, and I should say in the 60s, Uranus and Pluto were very close together in the sky. And now Uranus is pulled ahead to right angles. So the fructification of the seeds that were planted in 65 and after is now coming into blossom. So if anybody from the Politico movement is listening, consider what I'm saying. And if not, well, I'll get on the podium anyway. Now, I remember us demonstrators, peaceful it was, yes, on both sides. Meet peace with peace, I'll buy that. Whoom, yeah. Okay. So sitting in the middle of the crowd on some kind of perch, I don't remember what, was a guy, knees up, calmly, relaxedly sitting there watching the goings on. And I don't know if you're it's backwards on my screen. I don't know if it is on yours. Excuse me. Erased it. Oh yeah, had to play it. I don't know if you're into telepathy or not. My experience with telepathy is it's a lot easier to pick up a thought from someone else, even especially if they're directing it at you intentionally. And sometimes I pick up suggestions from people who aren't intentionally transmitting anything. I don't know where that comes from, probably the unity of neural networks, which are being radically weirded out by all the electromagnetic radiation. Our neural systems are like antennas that pick up the vibrations of the stars, if you please. Yeah, and it really, really warps them out to have all this electromagnetic stuff in the air. Anyway, that's, again, a separate situation. We ain't gonna change that anytime soon, unless God forbid, the grid goes down. Anything could happen, as everybody knows. I think personally, we're having to reinvent ourselves from the get. We have to reflect on our past behavior, our past lifestyle, and consider what part of that last lifestyle and behavior do we want to manifest. Something we haven't probably even done or thought of before, which is why we don't know who we're going to be next. very possibly dead is who are going to be next. I can speak from consideration of that. You know, the vast part of my life is behind me. Very little of my life is in front of me, but I'm sure keeping going. And so far, so good. You know, minor aches and pains. I'm reasonably fit for a young one, but that's a different story entirely. As I was saying, I amend it. I wasn't considering the blacks, which is really the problem, isn't it? But I said, somebody's got to take point in this peaceful evolution. And it's got to be the women, the children, the indigenous, in our case, Native Americans, in the case of other people on the globe, other indigenous, and the blacks. But it has to include, and this is for Indians and blacks, people who have forgiven us for the European invasion and all that that entailed, because it's history. This is the history lesson. And if you can find an old hippie, you better listen to him. Even though we're pretty eccentric and everybody is weirder. I recently had a housemate who was of the 20-something generation, and I was amazed at their style. Nothing like it I'd seen. Oh, amazing. And, you know, these are people that have a goal in life. They're very directed towards their goals, at least the ones that I met of that circle. Anyway, that's also a different story, but this is partly about the generation gap. You know, talk about invisible people whose perspective is not heard much. Well, count the Gray Panthers. Don't know if they still exist, but maybe I ought to ask. Anyway, now it's happening. Get ready. I'm tuning out. Enough said.